forget it. You get over it, okay? Please, believe me. Before you know it, you forget all about it. Go.
Hey guys, Pete here. Today I'll be doing a preview for the 11th episode of Better Call Saul's final season. I still love the idea that I don't really know what will happen next, but there is a short teaser and some tasty clues to discuss. There's also some promo photos, a confirmed title and synopsis, and some interesting implications from the timeline revelations that popped up during Nippy. If any of that sounds like spoilers to you, then this is your chance to leave. And with that out of the way, let's get into it. The big breaking news yesterday was that episode 11 is titled Breaking Bad. This popped up on some of the streaming services, and the episode's writer and director, Tom Schnauz, confirmed this to be true on Twitter. This mirrors Saul Goodman's first appearance in episode 8 of the original show's second season, having the title Better Call Saul. We've already visited the Breaking Bad timeline in episode 9, but we still haven't had those much teased scenes with Walter White and Jesse Pinkman. The episode description sounds like it could be about them. It reads, the partners escalate their enterprise to new levels. But the one from episode 10 also sounded like it could be them, and I'm sure you recall that there were no scenes, just a mention. However, I do think we'll see Bryan Cranston at the very least, and the episode that name-checks his character's journey through one of the best TV series of all time. I think we'll probably see Aaron Paul as well, but I don't think anything's guaranteed because it's just sort of been like that. Part of the reason I'm not sure how long we'll visit the Breaking Bad timeline is that all three of the promo photos that AMC released are in black and white. There are two different shots of Gene, where he's in his street clothes rather than the Cinnabon getup, one during the daytime and one at night. I don't notice much to talk about other than he's wearing different clothes in each of these, and that hints that there is more of the Gene story to come. Also, in the Insider podcast, Michelle MacLaren, who directed 610, said that Peter Gould brought in all the directors for the last episodes to do a sort of workshop about shooting in black and white. I mentioned that Mr. Schnauz is directing this one, and Mr. Gilligan is directing the next. That makes it sound like there's a chance that there could be a lot of Omaha in our future, and the final promo photo that features Jeff fits right into that. That doesn't mean we can't jump around in time, and I mentioned this in my last video, and we talked about it a lot during the stream. Everything points to the events in the Gene timeline happening in October of 2010. I don't want to get into all of the details that support that in this video, but when I was watching the last episode and heard Gene and Frank discussing football games, I wondered if they were revealing clues about when this was happening. By the time I walked the dogs and ran an errand, the internet sleuths had already put the pieces together. I'll try to find a post to link in the description that contains all the details if you're interested, but what I think is more interesting is that this date happens between two major dates in this universe. It establishes that Jimmy has been in hiding as Gene for about 7 months since he was disappeared by Ed back in March. The events of 610 then are a month and change after Walter White returned to Albuquerque and died on September 7th. The other important date is Saul's birthday, because in the 405 flash forward, Francesca agreed to take a call on that day. That's supposed to happen on November 12th, which would be just weeks after the mall scam he pulled off with Jeff. Nothing has really occurred to change my mind that Kim is the most likely person to be on the other end of that call. And if it's an annual thing, this would be the first time it's happening after he fled his life in Albuquerque. Walter White's death is the type of story that could turn into national news. If that's the case, that could account for some of the paranoia we watched Gene struggle with during the scenes that led to him getting picked up by Jeff's taxi at the end of season 4. Could also mean that Kim could have heard something about this, something about Saul being wanted, and she might be worried about him wherever it is that she settled after she left. Does any of that change anything or make a reunion more likely after this call? I guess that depends on what's going on in Kim's life more than anything else. Either way, given the timing, this call seems like it'll be an important plot point in the next couple of episodes. Another thing that might be important, or maybe not at all, is the 611 teaser. They aired this mid-credits in the last episode, which is a slightly different approach. I wonder if they placed it there because the one from 609 wasn't included in the stream on AMC+. It continues with the mysterious teaser trend we've had going on since the mid-season break, and that means that it's pretty hard to say much about it. It is a black and white aerial shot that shows a car pulling up to a crossroads. The captions for the voiceover say it's Saul talking, which is a little weird considering black and white equals Gene. That's just something to think about though, because mysteriousness is the point of these. But in an episode where we may jump back in time, this could be from the Saul period of his life, and that would mean he could be talking to anyone, including Walter White or Jesse Pinkman. He chuckles and says, "I get it. You get over it, okay? Please believe me. Before you know it, you'll forget all about it. Go." My initial take when this aired right after the episode would be that it's related to Kim. It's probably due to the question of what happens to her always being on my mind, and the way this sounds like the conversation they had in the hotel. In a way, that makes it a little less likely he's saying it to her since it's a conversation they already had, but this show does like to echo itself when it makes sense. There's also the question of whether this dialogue will even be a part of 611. There was a lot of speculation about the happy ending line during the mid-season break, and that turned out to be Gene talking about a made-up dog to Carol Burnett several episodes after the teaser was released. The thing that makes me think this is from the next episode is because that's how it was in the last two teasers they released after the episodes. We had Saul parroting Mike saying, "One day we'll realize we hadn't thought about it at all," and Gene's rhyme from the robbery after 609. Visually, the shot conjures thoughts of Omaha more than anywhere else, and a crossroads always makes you think about a decision that has to be made. Which way to go next? This is a question that could be related to what Gene does next. Things that Saul might be considering in the Breaking Bad timeline, or the bit of Jimmy McGill that's still buried in there somewhere at any time he might decide to make an appearance. I wouldn't mind seeing each of these versions of the character having to make that kind of decision. In the upcoming episode, I think it would most likely be about what Gene's up to, but I guess you could also ask this question about Kim if she does end up being involved in this episode, which I hope she does. I think with Nippy showing us that we're not going to be spending most of the time in the Breaking Bad timeline certainly makes it seem more likely that we will get something about what Kim's up to, especially if we're heading towards them coming back together. For Gene, I think the final shot of him in the last episode is somewhat ambiguous. His spirits are lifted after the scam, and he has his moment looking at the store that reads as him being satisfied with what he accomplished. Was this taste of the action something he can walk away from, or is it just a thing that will set this cycle back in motion? It's hard to say. It's also hard to imagine Jeff being involved in the episode if there isn't a problem. Or if Gene just has another scam he needs him for, then it's hard to imagine that not leading to a problem of its own. The way things were left, Gene was kind of in a good position, but considering there's 3 full episodes to go, you can't imagine that will last. I still like the idea of Marion being more than she let on the most. I saw a few theories that imagined her being a do-gooder that would turn Saul in, but that kind of feels like a waste of Carol Burnett's talents to me. I'm also not a big fan of her secretly being related to or connected to one of the other major characters in the story. Perhaps there's something about Jeff's time in Albuquerque, maybe she was there as well, but I think it's important to remember that Jeff came in contact with Gene by chance. He was just a cab driver who picked him up at the hospital. I suppose you could go back and come up with a way that was all staged, but I don't think that's what's happening. I would love to see her turn on Gene and become a worthy adversary who's trying to use him for something that she needs rather than trying to take him down. He did pull a move on Jeffy, who she seems to be protective of though. So if we're going to be hanging around in Omaha, I can't imagine we've seen the last of her. I mean, the introduction to the character was that she still likes to handle things herself. Then Gene concocted a situation where she needed his help so that he could work his way into her life. He seemed to win her over with his charm, but she could have been playing along to try to figure out what kind of game he was actually playing. Most of these suspicions come from their last interaction. The mention of Albuquerque, Gene getting tripped up on the nippy question, and her insistence that he was a good influence on Jeff. It's funny because in the last episode description, he was the new player in the game, so the partners escalating their new enterprise to new levels could be him and Gene. The reason why they would come back together is the big question though. I don't know the answer to that. I can't wait to see what they had in mind, and I think that's a good place to leave things. Let me know in the comments what you think about this teaser, what you think about staying in the Gene timeline, and do you think that we'll finally get our Walt and Jesse scenes in the episode that's called Breaking Bad? It seems like it should be a done deal, but it also seems like they're having a little bit of fun playing with us. If you want to talk more about what might happen next, join us for the live stream this Saturday. We'll be talking about theories and predictions and answering all your questions. Please like this video if you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.